Call our meeting to order, Finance Committee meeting on the 3rd of October, 1:30 p.m. I think we have a little bit of business to transact. Including Article 2, which when we met last had not had action on the part of the planning board. Mm-hmm. So, which I now think they have. So, any comments on Article 2? The planning board is voted to recommend the article. And I think if you heard, Rick, would you like to be heard? Yes, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you were going to take comments on that.
Yeah, no, please.
The only thing I would say just in general, usually you've been supporting the recommendation of the planning board in a lot of your zoning articles as they come through, which people can understand this. I think this one you want to think a little differently about, because their recommendation is, as we just were saying, at least as I followed it, but I haven't seen the comment yet, wasn't so much recommending it on the merits, but we're thinking about recommending it to the town meeting, which to me leaves you in a little different position than the normal planning board recommendation, or recommended not to take action if that had come from the planning board. So you might want to think about waiting for the comment, and whatever you're going to do, if you, for example, chose to agree with the planning board, you might want to specifically refer to the comment, unless you feel differently and the reasons there.
So
does that make sense to you? I just didn't want you to feel you were recommending their recommendation of the article without consideration that it's not so firmly a normal recommendation.
So we have a copy of their comment that was just handed out.
Yeah, I don't
Have you all seen this before?
I just read it now.
And the backstory is, you perhaps didn't hear, Rick, but the backstory is that they actually were split on this 2-2, but agreed for a majority vote to send it to town meeting for a discussion by town meeting. So.
Right. One member chose to change that member's vote to enable that to happen, as opposed to the 2-2 vote that had really looked like it was going to be.
So,
is there another copy of the comment available?
Would you like to see it?
Well, yeah,
there's one here.
Oh, you can. So what do we,
2 pages in, Rick.
what do you want to say about this?
It just seems like this is, so is town meeting going to turn into a negotiation? It seems like that's what the philosophy is behind this. We're going to take it to town meeting to discuss.
Oh, I think that was the only way it could get. I mean, if they had stayed deadlocked at 2-2, they would not have been able to advance it. Is that correct, John?
That's what it says in the comment.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
I mean, part of me seems that if the planning board is basically letting this go forward so that there's a public debate, I mean, the most obvious, well, to me anyway, option for us is to take no action and just sort of pass it through and let town meeting. I mean, I sort of agree with you, Cliff. I think it could be a free-for-all, but
has marijuana ever been discussed at a public forum?
I'm sorry, we're on
This
the
is
zoning
Article 2.
Oh, the zoning article. I'm sorry.
Article 2.
Article 2.
I'm dreaming here.
It's in the special.
Right, I got it.
Special.
And the comment is on the second page.
It's on the second
but-
page,
It's right at the
Libby.
beginning, Peter.
The bottom of the second page.
It just seems like, they're just throwing something against the wall, and nobody's, the other side hasn't said, oh, if you do something, maybe we'll do something.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Diane's discussion, or the proposer, I guess we should say, it's an interesting idea, but there's an awful lot of contingencies about whether the developer would really want to take advantage of the zoning change and whether it would be an appealing avenue for them or not. I mean, I don't know.
It just seems like something would be approached before town meeting to get
Yeah.
a better head start or a better understanding. That's what I would think.
Pardon me?
Is this Article 2 from Special Town Meeting 1 or Special Town Meeting 2?
2. Sorry about that. I think we've dealt with everything else. So. Where I am on this is somewhat similar to where Cliff is,
Yeah.
in that
Me too.
I see no reason to make this zoning change when we have no idea what the developers have agreed to, what they would agree to. To me, this is somewhat gratuitous. You know, we're giving a zoning change, hoping that,
Hoping they'll bite.
yeah, and that's really not the right, in my view, not the correct way to go about it. If in fact this was appealing, there are other ways to, you know, get some background and get an understanding. So,
I mean, one could suggest that if this was appealing, the developers would have already come forward asking for this and all the discussions that are going on with this.
yeah.
This shouldn't be brought up by someone outside of the whole process to say, let's hope this works. Because I would imagine they've thought through every particular combination.
And if there were the situation that for some reason this 40B didn't go forward, now we've zoned a piece of land.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, but if,
That has been turned down.
Three times before.
Yeah.
right, but if the 40B doesn't go forward and this zoning change has happened, I would consider it to be likely that the reason the developers abandoned the 40B application is because this is now possible. This density makes it more economically feasible to develop the property without the density that they're proposing currently.
Then I think they should come forward and ask for that zoning change with that argument.
It's not their preference, but it makes it easier
Yeah.
to abandon the application that they have before us, which is not 100 units. It's 156 units. And if they decide to go forward with any 40B, then this zoning change has no effect. I see it as a can't lose. What?
Sorry, Stephen, you think making the zoning change is a can't lose, or
Right.
leaving it alone is a can't lose regardless of whether we rezone it or
I
not?
think making the zoning change has no negative effect.
Then my question would be, why couldn't the planning board get to that opinion?
I think in a way they did, because they didn't want to kill it. I think if they didn't think that this had at least some merit, then they would have left the vote 2-2, and they wouldn't have advanced it for discussion.
Okay.
I think we discussed earlier that maybe, I don't know, and I'm not here to negotiate for them, it seems like we're negotiating with ourselves, that it would be more conducive to be half-acre zoning.
I agree with you. I don't think this goes far enough. I don't think this will have its intended effect, because I don't think it makes it attractive enough for the developer to abandon the 40B. So I don't think anything's going to come of this, even if the zoning change happens. But if you make the zoning change and the 40B application is not dropped, whatever number of units they get is whatever they get, has nothing to do with the zoning. The old zoning, the new zoning, doesn't matter. The only way this has impact is if the 40B application is dropped.
Last year, at the town meeting, they certainly knew about the development, right? And it says here that voters at 3 past town meetings have turned it down. So are you wasting time? And, you know,
I mean, I'm going to be
debating
there
something that's
anyway.
been turned down 3 times?
I think that this is the kind of thing that should be handled in a public hearing at a planning board meeting, and I think every board, the select board, the finance committee, the planning board prefers that these types of debates happen in these settings and not at town meeting. But for whatever reason, the planning board decided to punt this to special town meeting. They wanted everybody to have their say. And now that's given us opportunity to talk about it. And I'm one person who doesn't think there's a negative consequence here to discussing it or to the zoning change.
At town meeting, can we, this is for 1 acre, can it be negotiated to a half acre, or is that against the law to go beyond the scope of what it's zoned?
We'd have to ask the moderator, but I think she would likely say that.
All right.
So if this zoning change goes through, what's to stop the developers from selling this property with the new zoning change to somebody else?
Nothing, but again, one opinion, and probably has nothing to do with the financial impacts as far as certainly tax revenue. I would prefer to see this property cut up into 1 acre lots. I think it's more in keeping with the neighborhood. It's more in keeping with what I think most people want to see.
And no, it's not in keeping with the neighborhood. If you look across the street, they're on tiny lots, I think there's 3 developments across the street on Old South Road.
You have
And they have no-
2 acres on 2 sides, and then you have the roughly 5,000 square foot parcels in the 40B Sachem's Path on one side. So if you were to make this 1 acre, that's the kind of transitional zoning that we look for. I think 1 acre would be better than the 2. And that's why the planning board's put this forward a couple times before. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it was citizens petitions each of the last 2 years.
Last time it was.
Yeah.
Linda put it through. It was not totally clear whether she was acting as a planning board member or as a private citizen on that one.
Right. There were a few
There was a couple of
petitions
those.
that she had her name on South Shore Road. They were 4 other people who couldn't make it on the deadline day, and I remember that was confusing.
So we're sort of wrestling with, do we give a positive recommendation, a take no action recommendation, or doesn't sound like anybody wants to say thumbs down.
Can we agree with?
I would say thumbs down.
You would.
So, but that's,
I think the greatest potential win, and I don't think this is likely to get us there, but the greatest potential win is that the 40B application is dropped altogether and something is built in accordance with zoning, this zoning or the existing zoning. And I think the thing that gives us the best chance of getting there is passing this zoning change. I don't think it gets us there, but it gives us the best chance.
Obviously we usually respect their opinion, and maybe we should respect their attempt to do something that I don't have full knowledge of yet, and that's why they're the experts. So maybe it'd be better to be a positive recommendation, just to let them have their way and attempt to do something, instead of maybe putting a negative spin on it.
Well, in this case, I think we're just making a comment, right? We're not making a motion. We don't have to have a positive comment for town
we
meeting.
normally just say we accept the planning board's
Right.
recommendation, which is
To let it go to town
let
meeting.
it to go to town meeting.
Right. I don't think we can stop it from going to town meeting anyway,
Anyway,
so, yeah.
You might usually say defer to the planning board.
Yep.
Those two.
Yep.
Still agree with you saying.
Anybody want to make a motion to defer to the planning board?
So moved.
Second.
More discussion?
So deferring to the planning board, is that,
To their,
Yeah,
to their,
deferring
To
to
the
the,
recommendation.
their recommendation, which is to advance it. Understanding they made a comment, understanding what's going to happen on it.
okay, so we don't have to say take no action or,
No,
fine.
unless we feel that we want to make a statement, which in this case I don't think is going to matter much.
Yeah.
It's,
I don't think it's gonna.
So,
well, for the win,
yes, John?
I think technically, since the planning board is according to the technical amendments, making the positive motion, you would just defer to the planning board's motion.
Defer to the planning board's motion.
That's on the table. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Do we have anything else that we need to deal with, Brian?
Voted, we have the technical amendment for Article 10, but we already voted that.
Yeah.
We voted Article 3 and we put the comment in that we consent to vote for Article 3 and SDM2, so that's everything we've done.
All right, so we have nothing to do on Wednesday night, nothing major
Prior to the meeting.
prior to the meeting.
Unless something happens between now and next Wednesday night.
You wouldn't anticipate anything happening between now and next Wednesday, would you?
Oh, nothing. But no, I don't
Not
anticipate.
to equivocate here.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate.
Okay.
Now and wave to the beach here.
Anything else?
No.
Shall we adjourn?
Sure.
We're meeting at 2, so
So are you,
What
are
meeting?
you all staying
Yeah, I am.
for the moderator meeting when you want right here?
Yeah, I was going to, I don't,
Yeah.
Yes.
So then you can probably just adjourn after that.
oh, okay,
I don't envision anything you need to do, but
all right,
it might be.
that's fine. That is fine. Can we temporarily suspend so we can shut the microphones off and have a conversation, or is that a violation of open meeting law?
You can recess.
We can recess.
Rather than adjourn, you can recess.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's recess.
We're going,
Anything.
Anything?
You can talk about fishing, plans for Halloween.
awesome.
All right, so we're not gonna recess, and we'll talk about whatever we want.
good comment, Joe.
Yes, great, thank you.
Do we need to adopt that?
The
I
comment?
think once John blessed it, I think everybody,
Yeah.
we don't need to adopt the comment.
You're still in session, right?
Yes, we-
Correct.
Why don't you adopt it?
Okay.
Motion to adopt Joe's comment as written.
Second?
Second.
Which one is that on?
Article 3 and SGM2.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Tick, box is ticked. Brian, where did Julia go?
You know, the funny thing is, I don't know exactly the company, but it's
It's a waste company.
it's a waste company that is rapidly expanding across the country.
Okay.
Talked to her briefly the other day, I don't know exactly where she lives, but she was telling me that she gets emails at 3 o'clock in the morning from her CFO. So I guess they've ramped up and they're expanding faster than people.
Has she left the island? Oh, okay.
She is actually, she's in Sherbourne.
Mm-hmm. Sherburne Commons? She went in there?
Yeah.
I know. I was
No, so
my feeble attempt at levity.
I think she'll be back to visit the island, I think, in October.
Oh.
End of September, sometime in October.
They're basically doing a roll-up,
Okay.
small businesses,
Hmm.
and they're really expanding the business pretty rapidly. So, good opportunity for
Good.
our loss, but
Which leads to the next thing, is I don't know if we actually did this, which is also our game, because with us here is Alexander Penta, who is
Yeah.
actually the new budget.
FP&A person, yeah.
We saw her last night when you introduced her at the SB.
We're excited. It's been a month and it's the perfect time to start the budget season. Things start up better.
We want to talk about free cash?
Yeah, seems to be plenty of it.
Yeehaw.
No.
Yeah, can we submit
said
our
don't get
proposals
excited.
now?
I think one of the emails said, don't get too excited.
Yeah, that's right.
I have sort of a question about the budget that was in the select board meeting last night. Don't you keep sort of a dashboard of leading factors affecting the town, various collections and building permit rates and stuff? How does that look these days?
Well, the first quarter just ended and we've looked at, I mean, some of the leading indicators that we look at, being rooms and meals tax, they were up from last year, but not markedly in the 4, 5, 6% range that we've looked at. Building permits have trended pretty consistent to where we think they are, and they're still on the rise. But again, there's not this really large growth of 3, 4, 5, 6%, which we've been seeing in the run up to the last couple of years. Things are still growing, but they're not growing as fast as they were, which is something that I think even Julie and I had kind of talked a little bit about before. We had noticed that things were starting to, while they're still having growth, they're not at the same speed as they were in the years before them.
So last night, I think the numbers you shared with the select board had, going from memory, but 99 million or so in revenue and 98 something in
99.8 or 99.9 and 99.2. Yeah.
Right. So you had $700,000 of, call it surplus or whatever you would call it. What was that number when you did the same exercise a year ago? What was the gap between projected revenues and expenses? Was it 700, more than 700, less than 700?
I believe last, I'd have to go back, but I think last year initially there was because of during the presentation we had anticipated allocating more money to our own home than the 1.5 million originally, because free cash and retained earnings hadn't been certified. It was actually, we would have been over the level last year, I think by a little over $1 million. Which was a result of, obviously, with free cash and retained earnings not being done, we were not sure where we were going to end up having to fill with the general fund transfer to the highway fund. So, when you take that out, we were probably in somewhere between $500,000 to $700,000 range, pre any new position requests. And, you know, again, as I always like to tell everybody, we're in October 2nd. A lot of things will change as the town manager and departments submit their requests. As we go through all of this, we get more clarity on state aid. We may feel comfortable raising it depending on what we scrub through the first quarter of local estimated receipts. Those numbers might change slightly from where we're thinking that those are going to be. They're about 11.3 million of the $99 million that we're projecting. State aid was projected at the same $3.8 million. So there's a lot. I mean, we have projected 750,000 in new growth. We typically start pretty consistent to where we've been, and then as the assessor gets fiscal 19's new growth certified, we may be looking to expand that a little bit based on what they've seen for stuff that's going to be coming through that we could add in fiscal 20. So I would say, quite frankly, it's probably consistent with if we take out the extra money we were allocating, or if preliminarily to IH, it's pretty consistent.
Thanks.
It was a good presentation yesterday. It's very clear. Even though you said not a single number would stay the same, it was very clear.
People get married to the numbers very quickly.
I give you full credit for presenting numbers that are all going to probably change.
And they can and do change, but
Yeah,
it's good to know where
it's directional. Yeah.
what we're the starting point that town administration is looking at.
No, it's good.
Sometimes they're looking at.
It was good. have a date for the Saturday review in January, David?
I think it's gonna be the same Saturday as it has been in the past, which I think is the 26th,
Okay,
which is pretty much predicated on when Mass Municipal meets the week before, which I think is the 18th, 19th to 20th. Is that right?
okay. All right.
Should we be moving?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.